Chapter 2. Slain. In parentheses. Slender. Christian, 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 Christian! Christian snapped out of his stupor and looked around. His friend Tyler was sitting next to him in the 5-minute grace period before the end of lunch and the beginning of class. A safe time to talk. "What is it, Tyler?" Christian asked. "You kinda zoned out there. I was just trying to get your attention," he said. "Why'd you run away back there? You almost crossed the line you couldn't come back from." I know, I'm sorry," Christian said, "but I don't think you should be hanging around them." Tyler cocked his head. "Why not?" "Didn't you see how they were dressed? It was completely inappropriate for
Jacob.
for Jacob to dress like that. Even a woman shouldn't be that exposed. And not to mention, do you know how immoral anime is? It is full of violence and sex and blatant pedophilia. Do you know the age of consent in Japan? Ever since that new sex license law, there hasn't been one," Tyler said. "That's exactly the problem." "No, you don't understand," Tyler said as his eyes glossing over and voice becoming monotone, as if he were reciting the devil's scripture. "You see, the test a person has to take in order to receive their sex license tests whether they're sexually mature enough to consent or not. So if they pass the test, then they are mature enough to consent." Christian scoffed at his friend. "No, these people are bad news. They give off a bad aura. I think they might be committing sin." Tyler pounded his fist into the table. "That's no reason to give up on them. They're my friends, and I care about them. If there is something wrong with them, then I should be there for them." "Yes, well," Christian said, "Jesus said to love thy neighbor, and so we shall love them. Come on, after class let's Ring!" The bell rang, and all the students swiveled their necks to the front of the room in the blink of an eye and shut their mouths. Teaching was about to begin. Christian and Tyler learned about Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King Jr., and Alexander Hamilton, and how they ended science denialism, racism, and imperialism, respectively, and they learned how supportive of capitalism they were. The teacher discussed Teddy Roosevelt and how he busted monopolies and ended once and for all big money's role in politics. It was a rousing listen until Mr. Rowling revealed that Martin Luther King Jr. was actually born a woman. Alexander Hamilton was gay. Albert Einstein was actually Jewish. And they didn't love capitalism. They were all communists and wanted to make heterosexual marriage illegal. It was during this lesson that Christian began to doubt. Why do we accept it as a given that people should have a right to quality health care? Why do we allow the government to control our postal service? Why does the government pay for education instead of making the people do it? While it seemed intuitive on the surface that limiting the power of corporations would help the lower classes, wouldn't it be against their rights as people to limit their overreach of powers? Shouldn't companies be allowed to exploit their workers, gouge competitions, and lobby their interests? If the consumer didn't like these things, they could always boycott. That's precisely why insulin was so cheap. He wanted to ask for God's guidance, but it was prohibited to speak during class, so Christian quelled his tongue for now. Christian left his class with these thoughts still left in his head. We knew doubting was sinful. God said no authority on earth exists except with his approval, so you should accept that authority. But for some reason, yet he still doubted. Christian was only brought out by his stupor by Tyler prancing alongside of him as they left classes. "You're in a good mood," Ryan remarked. "I just got a text from Jacob," Tyler said. "It took me a while to decipher it, but I think I'm going to be inducted into the club." "That's news," Christian said. He wanted to be polite and call it good news, but he couldn't bear it to lie. "Christian, you should join me after for their school meeting. There will be still one more chance for you to join." "While I don't approve," Christian stated, "I can't tell you not to go. However, it is against my beliefs to join you." Tyler was deeply disheartened. Oh well, he perked up again. Well, can't you at least come to support me? You don't have to join a club, but it would mean a lot to me for such a, Tyler stumbled on his words, close friend to be there for me. This would this is really important to me. Christian was at a crossroads. He could feel the presence of the anime club as a force trying to drag him into sin, but at the same time, he didn't want to abandon his best friend. He didn't understand why Tyler was so passionate about joining this club, but he knew the boy had a life outside of him. He never saw Tyler's friends outside of the church, but he knew he must have them. If these were the type of friends he had, Father Smith wouldn't be too happy, but Christian wasn't Father Smith. He must be supportive of his friend, lest his abandonment cause him to stray from the path of God. Okay, Christian said, I'll join you, but I will not be joining your ways. Tyler was suddenly filled with an uncontrollable amount of excitement. He bounced on his toes like a child and pulled his arms and face inward into his core. He closed his eyes and squealed before leaping up upon Christian and hugging him. Ew, don't it gay, Christian said, pushing his friend off of him. Oh, right, sorry, Tyler said. I didn't mean to anything by. Oh, well, this is my class. I'll see you after school. Bye, room 20614. Tyler went into class, and Christian continued on to his own. He looked down at his foot, anxious about what he had just accepted. Christian walked slowly up the stairwell to the 2600 hallway once the school day had ended. The hall was dark. The school didn't even station their activities and forgot they were present and turned the lights off. Either that or the club accepted this as wallowing immortality and preferred the dark. His footsteps echoed as he climbed. Step, step, step. Each echo was louder than the last. Christian's heart pounded, and he was afraid it would begin echoing as it went too. Then it was suddenly a second set of footsteps behind him. Step, 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 step. Christian lost control of his breathing. He was being followed. The anime club was going to set upon him and hurt him. Maybe they would tear off his clothes and forcibly convert him to homosexuality. Maybe they would burn the American flag in front of his face. Or even worse, they might return the copy of the Bible to the library and purposely misplace it in the fiction section. Christian looked around, but couldn't find anyone in the long shadow cast by the school's cold walls. A light flickered. He jumped. The footsteps stopped. He made it to the top of the stairwell. He was safe. He opened the door. Boo! Ah! Christian fell to the ground, screaming, as his friend Chase stood over him on the other side of the door. Jesus! Christian stopped himself. What are you doing, dude? Chase laughed. I was heading to practice and saw you just walking up the stairs, pale as fuck, and about to crap your pants. And I just had to see how high you jump, and it was pretty high. Christian got to his feet, and Chase patted him on the back. The contact made Christian uncomfortable, but he said nothing. So, where you heading, Chris? I'm not really feeling practice today anyways. Coach already knows I'm leagues better than anyone else on the team. Christian's cheeks burned. He couldn't tell Chase he was going to be the Anime Club, a voice announced down the hallway. This way, any members coming? It is room 2614. Christian's entire white face turned red as his hair was yellow. No fucking way! Chase bellowed. You're shitting me. You're really going to the anime club? Ha! Stop it, Christian said. Hey, I'm supportive. Come on. I'll join you on your trip to the anime club. Christian couldn't hold it in. Chase couldn't hold it in as he started laughing again. He put his arm around Christian's shoulder and walked with him into the club room. His arm burned, but Christian didn't want to apply violence in order to push it off. They found out Jacob was the one announcing the direction of the anime club. They walked past him, and Tyler is inside waving them down. Yo, Ty, what up, my man? Chase says. Hey, Chase, you decide to come to the club meeting? Yeah, bro. Anything to support my man Christian here. Chase nudged Christian, who was hot to the touch, while blushing all over his embarrassed body. Tyler looked excited, and they all sat down. After a few minutes, Jacob came back inside. The president was nowhere in sight. "Where's Nolan?" Tyler asked. "How should I know?" Christian said. "Nolan?" Chase asked. Christian felt a sudden chill. The room somehow seemed darker, and he felt an evil presence behind him. "Ah, you've brought another friend." Christian turned around, and Nolan was directly behind him. "Yes," Tyler said. "This is Chase. He's another friend from the Young Republicans Club." Nolan's neck turned quickly at a 90-degree to face Tyler. Christian's heart pounded. "Young Republicans Club, you say?" "You got a problem with that?" Chase asked. "No," Nolan said. "No, no, no, no." "Shame what happened with your president, though." "How do you know about John?" Christian asked. Nolan folded his arms behind his back and tilted his head ever so slightly. He towered over Christian and cast a shadow not only on his body, but on his heart. "Me? No. But Jacob knows all about it." Christian turned slowly, the other boy radiating just as threatening of an aura. Light seemed to not bounce off of him into Christian's eye, but rather the fluorescent lights of the classroom dripped off the boy like a thick blood. As Jacob began narrating his tale, Christian was forced to look at his scantily clad body. His exposed stomach was thin, and his ribs looked almost poked out of him. His skin was so thin he seemed barely alive. His beard was shaggy, and the way he kept reflectively reaching for his briefcase kept Christian on edge. What did he have in there? His eyes were wild, jumping between each person in the room and various objects. It wasn't like it was like he wasn't all there. "Yeah, I was the one who did it," Jacob said triumphantly. "See, the guy became a talker, so I had to take him out. He was talking to himself with his hands clasped and his eyes closed like some loony before the bell rang before class. But once class started, he didn't stop. I tried to talk him down, but there was no going back. It was a quick pierce, in and out, and he was down." Jacob leaned back in his chair and flexed his bicep. "Did it all by myself, too." "Wait," Christian said. Certain details of the story were making his blood run cold. "Did you say he had his hands clasped, eyes closed?" "Yeah, what a weirdo," Jacob said. "Was he praying? Was he talking to God?" Christian asked. "Mm-hmm," Caleb nodded. "Good thing I got the opportunity to take him out." "Huh. I found out in his notebook that he was planning a heated hand quotes, Socratic debate about the pros and cons of homosexuality," he finished quoting. "Pretty intolerant." Was that the big announcement? Christian thought. His heart pounded. The club president was killed for talking to God. But shouldn't it be an exception to the vow of silence during class if he were talking to God? Christian had seen a Muslim girl become a talker before when she spoke with her God. But of course that was Satan turning her into a demon. How could God turn John into an enemy of the school? There must be something wrong. But Christian couldn't place it. "Bro, what the fuck?" Chase slammed his hand down on the table. Christian broke out into a cold sweat and slowly turned to his friend. "Chase, what are you doing? You don't know which room you're in?" All the magical boys' heads turned towards the outburst without their bodies moving like owls. Their faces were blank, but their eyes were cold and dark. "So you're the ones who killed John? I've known him since we were kids!" Chase was crying. "Since we were fucking kids!" "Chase, calm down, please," Christian pleaded. Nolan put his hand on Chase's shoulder. His hands were colder than ice and bonier than a skeleton. His grip was soft, but it stung. "Please do not use that kind of language within school grounds," Nolan said. His voice was completely monotone, and his neck jerked to the side like a snapped twig. "Are you shitting me? You killed my best friend, and then you tell me not to fucking—" Chase stopped talking. His eyes went wide. His legs swelled, and he fell to the ground. His whole body was then flattened. and burst as if he had been crushed by a boulder. Blood splattered across the room, peppering the faces of every boy in the room. Paper-thin intestines oozed out from the body, which now appeared more as a stain on the floor than a human that was once living only moments ago. Christian's whole body was shaking. He slowly turned to where one of the club members had lost his clothes and was reaching his fist out. A blue glow emanated from the boy. Jacob waltzed over to the boy and kissed him on the cheek. "Nice job with that cursor, Matthew." Ja- Jacob hugged his arm and leaned his head against his shoulder. Christian's face lost all of its color. This wasn't justice, he thought. It finally clicked for him. It wasn't right for them to kill John. They didn't kill him because he was talking, but rather because of who he was talking to. God wouldn't allow someone for being smitten for doing something moral, so these boys must be. Finally, the veil was lifted. It was as if a fog that was covering the reason portion of his mind had cleared out. We all accept that this is how things should be, but these boys live an immoral life of decadence and lust, Christian thought. These were not mutual friends. They were not merely leading a different lifestyle. These were enemies, and he was trapped in this room with them.